Welcome back to That's a Good Word, a podcast designed to assist and equip Christians through advice from people in ministry. If you're blessed by our content, we'd appreciate if you liked and subscribed to our YouTube channel, and feel free to follow some of our social media content as well. We're on Facebook and Instagram, and Twitter as well. I'm honored today to have on Jimmy Batson, a friend of mine. He is a professor at North Greenville University, and he is also the hearings officer for the South Carolina Department of Parole. We're going to hear from both Jimmy Batson and also Jo Henson later on, talk about a couple of important ministries. But Jimmy, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you being here, brother. Good to see you, man.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, sir. So we'll start as we always do. Give us just your background, tell us your testimony, and then we'll talk about what you do now.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So I grew up right in Marietta, born and raised in Marietta, and still live technically Travelers Rest, but I still consider it Marietta area. And very blessed with a good home life, and attend Marietta First Baptist Church. Grew up there, and at the age of 10, I began to realize that I was trying to be a good little boy, but that was still not what I needed. I need Jesus in my life, and surrendered my life to Him then. And I'm very blessed growing up, and over the last years, I really found that I was greatly blessed in a lot of different ways, and one was in my vocation. Looking back at it, I realized that it was a ministry calling in a vocational workplace as well.
That's right. Sometimes people may not realize that whatever God calls us to do, that's ultimately a ministry that we're doing. And you've had the opportunity to work in the prison ministry for a while now. Talk about what your job is and then how you get to work with individuals and help them along in their lives.
Very good. Yes. So 45 or so years now, I've been blessed to have the opportunity to continue working. Worked a lot of different roles during those years, which I've enjoyed that a lot as well.
Right.
But primarily in the prison system, the parole system, and then through the court system, the probation system. So basically, dealing with individuals that are on some type of sanction by the state to do or not do certain things. And so it's to help watch, guide, protect folks to become law-abiding folks out in the communities as well. And so through that, some years ago, I began to really realize that my greater calling in that was on the reentry side. So we have a group now for 10 or 12 years as Faith Partners for Reentry Services. And so, and like tomorrow afternoon, we'll be meeting as well. But one of the things I started doing years ago is we began every meeting with a head count, a bed count. So I printed this out this morning before I left work. So in our state, South Carolina Department of Corrections, the director is Brian Sterling, real great guy, but he's responsible for 21 prisons and about 16,000 inmates.
Wow.
And so every meeting, we start this way, is the bed count as of this morning was 16,238 total. Of that group, 15,035 were males and 1,203 were females. And I got convicted, Wilson, 8 or 10 years ago. So when I would read those figures, I was convicted that's a number, but it's a person. And Jesus Christ, they were created in God's image. Jesus shed His blood for each of these folks as well.
Amen.
So there's consequences for violations of actions, and we accept that part. But as believers, what do we do? And we know that God's Word has many, many examples of prisons and writings from prisons. A lot of the New Testament was written while in prison as well.
Right.
So it's like understanding that there is a price to pay, but as believers, what can we do to help that person change their life totally? So that's what we're focusing on in our part of the Faith Partners Reentry Group.
Right. Many times people that are in prison can feel isolated,
Yes.
because they feel like they are being cut off from society.
Yes.
And so reentry, I imagine, is when they're actually going back into society. Is that
Yes.
what you're working with?
That's right. That's what primarily we do, two focuses. And I've learned many years ago not to try to duplicate what someone else may be doing well. In South Carolina is very blessed in many ways. And one way is that through our government is very open to religious activities. A lot of other states, some of my counterparts around, that's not the case. But in South Carolina, there is that balance or line, but it's very open. So, for example, in the upstate area in Spartanburg, we have a real strong ministry partner in Jumpstart Ministries,
Right.
Dr. Kerry Sanders, and he does a great job. And they do inside prison ministry, and they're in over half of these 21 institutions that I mentioned here as well throughout all the state. They're very big and strong. Kairos Ministries. So there's different groups, and chaplains are allowed to do their religious activity programming. We have part of our team are religious volunteers that go into, in our case, Perry Correctional. So we tie into what they do. We encourage people to get involved in either or both. Our focus is on that period leading up to the release and then upon release. And so through that, we know that, the whole thing of hierarchy needs, person needs food, shelter, clothing, and then from there you begin to work up. So a lot of our group doesn't have even those basics, food, shelter, clothing.
Wow.
So part of my job through the years and our team's job is that of that 16,238, the Department of Corrections on average releases about 1,400, 1,600 inmates yearly. So you figure out a monthly basis, over 100 released every month. And so a lot of times, Greenville Spartanburg has a high population, but also while inside, guys hear about the job opportunities. The Greenville's booming, Spartanburg's booming. So we have folks that come to our counties regularly. So we receive about 100 of that number coming to Greenville area, Greenville Spartanburg area. And so part of their initial stops, we try to be there at the initial stop. A lot of folks may have family that are helping support and get them connected, but sometimes it's a person at the bus stop being released, and there they are. No food, shelter, clothing. And so if you're starting back over after a period of incarceration with no food, shelter, clothing, family support, or network, it's really hard from there.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably two sides, but they're probably very happy to get out of prison. But then if they don't have anybody, I mean, it's really a scary situation. And you as a member of the church of the kingdom of God, you as a Christian are able to come alongside those individuals and say, "Hey, I'm here to help.
Yes.
I'm here to help." There's a lot of it just getting these people involved with these ministries. But I also imagine you also get a lot of chance to have personal conversations with these people, right?
It opens. That's what I've learned through the years is that I do the part that's required by the state to do the paperwork and such, but then you have opportunity to sit and talk with someone about, okay, we finally got you a job situated, we got your IDs, we got your place to stay, but what's going to be the difference now than before? And it goes back to in AA and NA, a lot of those old sayings really have a lot of truth and validity. You have to change your playmates and playpens, or you're going to be back in the same situation. So a lot of folks begin to understand. I think, well, where are you going to find your new friends? And so a lot of them, Mr. I don't know, everybody in my house is on meth, and all my friends I know are on meth or whatever drug.
Right.
And I said, well, let's look about maybe churches or groups in your area. Are you open to that? And very seldom have I ever been told no, not at all. And so then, like our church, Marietta Church, we do a recovery group on Tuesday nights. So that's an opportunity for a person to, I don't know about going in church on Sunday mornings and all that. So we'll come on a Tuesday night, just come as you are, and we'll have food, and you just sit and talk and meet other people. And through that, you find out that there's a lot of common connections, struggles.
Right.
And a lot of growth occurs in the midst of those struggles.
Yeah, sometimes even in the Christian life, the most helpful thing we can do sometimes is just sit down and talk with people and mourn with each other and bear each other's burdens. There's something about that. I also imagine that with a lot of these ministries that are working inside the prison system, there are people coming out of the prison system that are Christians.
Yes.
They may have gone into prison, they weren't a Christian, they had nothing to do with God, And now they go into the prison system, and these great ministries that work inside the prisons, or a pastor that comes, or you helping alongside these individuals, they are Christians now. They become a new creation. Uh, but also they might feel isolated from the church. They may have never darkened
Yes.
the door of a
Yeah.
church before. What is your encouragement to churches to just reach out to these people
Yeah.
and be
Reach
willing
out.
to take them in?
That's a great question. I always, if I have opportunities to go speak, and partner church here is Cleveland First Baptist, and one of the things there is opportunities to speak and also do health kits. That's a real good way for churches to start getting involved. And a health kit can be simple. It can be more. Majority of times, it's a 2-gallon Ziploc bag with soap, toothbrush, toothpaste, towel, washcloth, and things like that. And so, just that one gift there. Many times, Wilson, I've had a person that they'd come in, check in as far as their parole requirements. We would place them back in the lobby, and I'm on the phone trying to find them a place to live, to go to.
Yeah, yeah.
And in the meantime, I'll get them a bag and carry it out there. And a lot of times the bag will have crackers, peanuts, or a bottle of water, things like that. And a lot of churches slip notes in there. And I've seen big old guys with tattoos all over and everything sit there and cry. And the one man told me, Mister, I've never had anybody tell me they love me in my whole life.
Wow.
And just a note from
Oh,
someone
man.
they don't even know at all. Just, give them a verse of scripture, and we care about you and we love you.
Hmm.
So that means a lot.
Oh, man. And the other thing I know that we've had before is you actually get the opportunity with some of these individuals that come out of the prison ministry that have really lived lives on fire for God.
Yes.
And they've actually got the opportunity to come to churches and speak about, hey, this
Yes.
is what
Yeah.
God's
Yeah.
done. You can help me out with the name. I believe one came to our church recently.
Yes. Yeah.
You talk about some of the people that you know that are doing that
Yeah.
now.
And and it's like a lot of things, I guess, in life is that these guys know the other side.
Right.
So it's good
Right.
when a person gets out and they see some old gray-haired guy that's hasn't been in that type trouble before. It's like, well, I can get away with this or that. But these other guys that they've been there and lived there, they know both sides of it. So they
Mhm.
can call their hands on, brother, you're slipping, you're not staying in the Bible like you should. You're not, we're supposed to meet every morning at McDonald's and have coffee or whatever it might be. And, you've been missing a lot. So, but like tonight, for example, we'll have 2 men in our group. There's one's 10, 11 years on the inside, and the other one was like 13 years on the inside. And they're some of the strongest Christians that I know of.
Wow.
And
Wow.
they don't take for granted opportunities to share the gospel.
Right. Who's the individual that came to our church?
Stephen. The man's
Stephen.
name's Stephen. Yeah.
Stephen.
Yeah, he's doing well.
Awesome.
He's since married since the time we last talked, and he's a hard worker.
Mhm.
It's really nice to see an employer recognize that. So he's been given more responsibility, but also more pay as well.
Right.
And he's really doing well. So
Wow.
but
That's
he
awesome.
understands that it's not him, that in the flesh we'll all mess up, but that he stays in the Word, stays active in his church, really working hard.
Mhm. And sometimes, for people that are coming out of the prison system, um, just having consistency in their life
Yeah, it's very,
can be helpful.
yes.
Having groups every Tuesday night, or being with people once a week, getting in the Word
Right.
can be very helpful. I imagine that's a big part of it. Say, hey, let's get some consistency in your life, because if you have too much time, we don't know. You
Yeah.
don't want to be having way too much time where you can do anything.
That time is a big thing, and guys that catch it, that they get it in the head, they realize that they look for groups every night of the week. It's like my
Mhm.
spare time has always got me in trouble before.
Right.
And so I do a lot better when I work hard. I'm too tired to do anything else. I eat, clean myself, and go to bed. And that's the best thing for me at that point in time. And then over time, get a more balanced lifestyle from there.
Right. You talked about how you were convicted to help these individuals. How has this ministry that you've been doing for some time now, quite some time, how has it impacted your walk with Christ?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's drawn me closer and just really helped me in just people. I'm a people person. I love people, love to talk to people. It's a hard ministry. My wife and I are both involved, and we come to realize through the years that we see a lot more people that don't make it than do make it.
Mm.
And that's hard, but it's the reality, especially in terms of substance abuse. And that's through the years, that's the one common thread I've seen. At school, I read and do a lot of research and statistics as far as housing, employment, those issues. But substance abuse is that common thread throughout pretty much everybody I deal with in the workplace side.
Mm. And many of these individuals have been in prison for quite some time. I
Number
mean,
of
you probably
years.
had some that have been there 20, 30 years
Yes.
that you had
Yeah.
for reentry.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest fear, I imagine, is are they going to get back on what they were before, that led them to commit
That's
many of the
right. Yeah.
crimes that they did. I mean,
So, and part of what we do in Faith Partners, it's a networking group. We share resources. The upstate is very blessed with a lot of faith-based rehab houses.
mm,
So for men and women, there's always bed space struggles. There's never enough beds to keep up with the demands. The demands are just tremendous. We're blessed with a detox center in Greenville to help people physically deal with a lot of those issues. Spent this morning at our church. We do a community outreach twice a month, and we have the detox folks come up here to make even eliminate another step in the process there. And so we were a lady that we'd been working with and praying for a number of years. She did come this morning, and so we're continuing to work and pray for her that she'll take that next step as well.
right. We're going to talk about substance abuse here
Yes.
in a second some more. One thing I wanted to ask, though, that just for people watching, if someone's a member of a church or they're in the leadership of a church and they want to get involved and they want to say, hey, I want to help out with people, whether they're in prison, in the prison system right now, or they're going through reentry, what are some ways that they can get involved?
All right, that's a great question too. So, one of the lessons we study a good bit is the prodigal son. And through the years of my growing up, I'd read it and studied it numerous times, but only in recent years, I actually caught the part about, and they gave him not, where he talks about as he was out and about and already spent all the monies that is from his father's inheritance, reaches a point where they gave him not. And that's, in our way of thinking these days, that's a lot of what we would think of it as enabling. And a lot of folks, me, that part of our nature is try to help someone, but there are harmful ways of helping someone. And a lot of churches that I've had the opportunity to visit with have come to realize to be smarter about what help actually means. And so one of the ways there is begin somewhere. That's always one of my challenges to any church is take a step and begin somewhere. Health kit bags are really good. It may be, well, I'm not ready to go inside a prison yet. Well, if you can help get me 20 health kit bags a month, that helps out a lot. We gave out bags this morning, and so we keep them turned around pretty fast there. So it could be a small step. We partner with a lot of churches that do housing, and that's a big step on the other end to be able to do housing for folks returning citizens coming back, men and women into a community. Housing, as we all know in the upstate, the affordability has gotten hard for any of us. And then for somebody coming back out, just an apartment or a mobile home to live in is really a struggle these days.
Right. Imagine what this all comes down to for people in the prison, because there are certain people. I mean, we just have to realize that we all have biases,
Yep.
and unfortunately, our flesh would cause us sometimes to look down on people that are in the prison system. The reality is that we're all sinners, and that we are all. If it wasn't for the grace of God and the death of His Son Jesus Christ, none of us would we would all be going to the same place, whether we're in prison or
That's
not.
right. Yeah.
How would you encourage people, just in general, to love on people, whether they're in the prison system or they're getting out, and not to look down upon them?
Yeah. I think it starts with just that heart change on the inside of just accepting just what you've said there. And look at the examples of Paul. A lot of the New Testament, as we said, was written from prison cells or dungeons in those days.
Right, and Paul was quite the sinner himself. I
That's
mean,
right.
especially if the Christians were at the time in charge of the law, he would have been thrown in
That's right.
prison for sure. So,
That's right. And
um,
to accept that and acknowledge as part of it, there's man's law and accountability. It's not trying to say the prisons ought to just be the doors open, everybody released. I
right,
believe
right,
strongly there's a consequence for actions, and so that we have to acknowledge that. But then what 99% of every inmate eventually is released.
hmm
So as a community, as a state, do we want that person coming out better than they went in, or same or worse when they went in?
right,
Now, I think most of us say, well, I want better. So what does better mean? So, the employment skills are crucial, but really all those other things, until there's a heart change, those other things aren't going to matter. Jobs go away, people get injured, can't do the jobs. But if the change is a heart change, no matter what occurs, they're able to work through it.
that's right. If for Christians, I mean, for people that go in the prisons and they become Christians and they come out Christians, I mean, the worst thing the church could do is just totally reject them.
Yes, yeah,
Because I mean, they're going to say, "Hey, I'm a
yeah,
Christian now. I
yeah.
want to go be part of a church. I want to be part of the body of Christ." And if we just turn them down, I mean, that's going to discourage them a lot and really make them
Yes.
question their
Yeah.
faith. We don't want that. On the other side, what a great opportunity for people that are coming back into the real world, maybe after 5, 10, maybe it's less,
Yeah.
but maybe sometimes, and in many cases, it's almost a decade. They're in the prison system. They come out, they go into the real world, and the first people there to help them at the door are people like you and people that are in churches that
Right.
are willing to say, "Hey, we're here for you."
And
And I
it's
imagine that's a great encouragement. Like you said, people
yeah.
really respond to that.
And in the upstate again, we're very blessed. And if I started saying names, I'd leave out a group. But there's a lot of great faith-based halfway houses, transition houses that have been there and done it. So
hmm
I see a lot of times folks are a church with good intentions, but then 2 or 3 months later they close the doors because, well, we couldn't manage this, we couldn't manage that. So there's ways to partner with someone and get training, get education to be smart about it, but also to be Christ-like in all those things.
That's right. Speaking specifically about substance abuse, which we're
Yes,
going to talk a lot about.
yes,
So just so people understand, what are we really dealing with? Just the depths of
yeah,
how bad
it's
this is.
so I've been doing this job since 1978, and that's a long time,
Right.
And so through that period of time, it's been, alcohol is still the number one, and that was and is still. But over more recent years, like anywhere you watch or see the opioid crisis, and that's
Mm,
what we did, and particularly here where we are in the upstate rural part of Greenville. The rural areas have just been ravaged by the opioid crisis.
wow.
Um,
Yeah.
a lady that we were talking with today used Narcan on someone in her house last night. And so it's just a common occurrence in a lot of folks just all around us. So substance abuse uh, has changed over a period of time, but the root issue is people are going to find something and use something to try to escape from some reality that hasn't been dealt with. And so, some probably about a year ago, I was challenged to begin to think and pray and look into the uh, uh, ministry opportunity of Cameron's house. And that was through Indian Trail Baptist Church in North Carolina. We're going to talk more about that also. But to break the cycle during the childhood period, instead of, we don't give up on adults,
Right.
and we have a lot of
Right.
programs that work with adults. But if you've had an issue for 20 or 30 years, it's a lot harder to break than if you've been able to avoid that issue to start with.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's a testament. I mean, to the Christian life. And that's what we do
Yeah,
as that's what parents do, right? I mean,
that's
there's
right.
sometimes they try to
Yeah,
keep their kids from avoiding the same
yeah,
mistakes they might have made in their life, and that's ultimately what we're trying, what y'all are trying to do is say, hey, we're not, we want to still help the parents,
mhm,
but the kids suffer from this too, and we
yes.
want to make sure that stops. I mean,
Mm,
there's probably, unfortunately, there's so many unfortunate stories of where kids fall into this fall into this as well, and how they're negatively affected because of substance
that's right.
abuse,
Yeah,
whether it's eventually them down the road taking it or just because of their
yeah,
parents being on it. Um, I imagine it's a pretty grave situation.
It is very much, and the majority, and I don't want to say a number, but the majority of folks I deal with upon being released, there's no home situation to go back to. We're
Hmm.
not just talking single parent, but just none at all. Many times I'll hear regularly, Mr. JB, everybody in my household's on meth or on crack. So, how do you avoid that situation? And there's nowhere else you really have to go to live.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that's where we really lean into places like Overcomer's House, Edith's House, Alabaster House, adult men and women's programs. But there again, of this number I said, 16,238, Department of Corrections says that 67% of that number have children back in the community. So almost 70% of 16,000 there's children back out here. And so that's a lot of that is through some either another family member or foster care through DSS.
Right.
So what about those other children? And are they going to repeat that cycle and one day be one of these numbers here?
That's right. So currently I'll have a ministry that for children of substance abuse. I want to give you an opportunity. We're also going to have Joe speak as well. I want to give you an
Yes.
opportunity to talk about that ministry and the importance of it. Because as you said, that there's not much out there for these kids, and these
Right.
kids are going through a lot, and they need assistance. So talk about what this ministry is that y'all are doing with
I'm
the
just
kids.
really excited again because poverty has been a thing I've studied a lot, and one of the aspects of poverty is just that generational.
Right.
And you don't know what you don't know, and you just know what you've seen or grown up with as well. Domestic violence is a lot like that as well. So we're looking at all kinds of different ways of breaking a cycle that just doesn't keep perpetuating itself on and on. And so in terms of substance abuse, is partnering with local schools, and we're very blessed in our small community. We have a great elementary school to partner there with churches and with the counselors and to love on kids, but also do it in a therapeutic way. And that's what you'll hear more about also.
Mm-hmm. And there's this the Cameron's house. I mean
Yes.
that y'all are getting that
That's
started.
right.
We'll have Joe talk about that. But I
Yes.
mean, just give us a little preview of what that's about.
What it involves is how a regular, what we're seeking now is a residential house, a regular house that could be available for after school activities. And again, it's not just trying to be like a daycare after school, but a more intentional in sharing the God's word and with the therapeutic part as well, with trained counselors being involved. And then from there, getting the entire family also back involved in it.
Right. That's great because I know people are being encouraged to know that these people are hearing the gospel and these kids
Yes.
are hearing the
Yeah.
gospel. That's
That's
very
right.
important. Jimmy, I always enjoy talking to you, my
Well,
friend.
good.
It's always
Thank
a
you for
lot of
having me
fun.
on here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're gonna keep it going. We'll talk with Joe a little bit about this as
Okay.
well, brother. Always good talking to you,
All
man.
right.
Love you, man.
Thank you very much for having me here. And
Yes, sir.
keep doing the good work.
Thank you. Thanks, brother.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good.
We are also honored today to talk to Ms. Jo Henson. Joe, thank you so much for speaking with us also about this ministry for the Cameron's House. What would you like listeners to know about this ministry?
Well, I'm glad to be here because I want people to be as excited about Cameron's House as I am.
Right.
I can't wait to get started. It's for children of substance abusive parents. And like Jimmy said, it's not just an after school program. The children come to us for basically an hour, and they do get play therapy with a licensed counselors. We have some lined up with Heritage Counseling in Traverse Rest. Then they get a snack, a nutritional snack. We're hoping to have a tutor there that can help them get their grades back up because typically we see a drop in grades when they have the chaos in their home. And also, we will have volunteers to play with them, establish bonds, and let them know that you can trust people, that not everybody leaves you, that God is there, and that we're there for them too. And it's a lifelong thing. It's not just something they go through for a year or 2 or 3 years. we always want to be there for them. So we're encouraging as many churches to get involved as possible.
That's right. One thing that I know people will be encouraged by is that these children are getting things at Cameron's house that they aren't getting at home.
That's right.
In many cases, that they're getting the nutritional things, but they're all and they're getting um, maybe playtime that they aren't getting at home. Most importantly, though, I know that y'all are giving them the gospel and giving them God's word, and then just
Yes.
being a Christian influence on them with the way that y'all they interact with them as well. I know that's probably. Have you seen the impact of that? I'm sure.
Well, the first one started, Cameron's House started in North Carolina. Um, I'll give you the history of it. Pastor Mike Whitson had a grandson, and he died of an overdose of fentanyl.
Mm,
And Mike wanted to do something in his honor to keep his name alive and to help children of homes. So he started this, it came up, that's the original. So we've had a pattern to go by, and they have been in existence for about 3 years now,
wow.
and they have seen phenomenal results. People love to get involved with children and help children, and especially children like this that have come from chaos and not having a meal on the table, sometimes not even having a bed to sleep in, not knowing when their parents are going to be at home. They've had so much to deal with, and we work with ages 4 through 12, and we hope to give them joy and a normalcy. Hope is the main thing.
Right.
We want to see these kids grow up to be productive and know that God is in their lives and that they have someone they can always turn to.
Hmm. And not only for these kids is it making such an impact on them, but I know you probably can assure people that volunteer, it will have an impact on them as well
That's
if
right.
they volunteer. Because you've seen that as well. It's probably impacted your life greatly.
Yes, I have. Um, it seems like the more you get into volunteering, the deeper
Hmm.
um, the experience is for you. And we ask for people to volunteer because they will have to go through training and background checks, but we will pair them with one or two or three children, however much time they have,
Yes.
and they will be with that child once a week for basically an hour. And we have an affiliate there at North Greenville that says that we can probably get some of the North Greenville students too, that the younger they are, the better they bond.
Right.
So we hope that we can have that, plus a lot of people from churches that want to volunteer and bond and just show them what the Christian life is like.
That's right. We're fortunate in Greenville County to have so many churches and have so many people in churches that are willing to help out and volunteer. Um, when you're talking about Cameron's house, I mean, obviously, right now, y'all are working on I'm finding a place and getting this started as we're filming this, and
Yes.
we're praying that obviously, God continues to work there. But what would you like people to know that are interested in volunteering that that say, hey, we really want you to come, and this is what you can expect out of this.
Well, first of all, we want them
Mm-hmm.
to pray to prepare the children, to prepare us, to delve down into our hearts and see what position they want to volunteer for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some people are better at keeping books, some people are better at, handing out food, whatever it takes. And we need a wide variety of that.
Right. There are a
And
lot of positions open.
oh, yes,
Okay.
we need people to play. We need people to just supervise the kids and talk to them, like you
Mm,
were talking about a while ago. They just need people to talk to.
right.
And whatever it takes is what we're going to give. And we know that God's got something in place. We've
Mm-hmm.
just got to be patient enough to wait for Him to show us
Amen.
where it's going to be and who's going to work and where the money's going to come from. But it's opening up right now. And I know it's just going to be great when we all get it all together. It all comes together, and
Right.
God's got His hand on us.
That's right. Think about what Jesus in the New Testament, so many great images of him being with the children, where he says, "Suffer unto me, the little children," and all those great things. Ultimately, as Christians and the body of Christ, we cannot forget about the children. I mean, we cannot forget about the future. Ultimately, the test of our society is the kind of world we leave for our kids, and these kids, in many ways, have been forgotten about even by their own families. So the impact that Christians and churches can have on these kids just by being there, where maybe they don't have anyone that's there for them, being there for them has such a great impact. I know people are going to want to get involved. How can people get involved? I mean, we're going to put contact information for both you and Jimmy out there. They just need to reach out to you and talk to you.
Yes, could talk to Jimmy, could talk to me, my husband, who is a retired pastor, and if they could just call us and tell us what they are thinking, where they would like to work. They like to give money, supplies, school supplies, clothing. There's so many things that we need, but they can call us, and we don't have a website yet. We're looking for someone to help us with that, and but right now we're just in the baby steps. So, but if they can get in contact with one of us, that would be great.
Hmm. All right, awesome. Well, we will be praying for that, of course, most importantly, and for God to continue to work in that, but also for just our channel. If you're listening or if you're watching, we're going to put contact information for both Jimmy and Joe in the description. That we would encourage you to reach out if you even if you're interested, just to learn more information, or if you'd like to volunteer to reach out to them, so you can learn more about this ministry and working with these kids that are children of substance abuse and the importance of that for churches. And we encourage, and I know that you would just encourage the local church to be praying for it, most
Yes.
importantly, but and just if they feel led to get involved as well, right?
Yes, I hope to be visiting different churches,
Okay,
leaving pamphlets with them so they can share that with their congregation and go from there.
awesome. Is there anything else you'd like for us to discuss before we close out here?
I don't think so. I think we've covered it.
Okay, awesome. Well, awesome. Well, I am Wilson Paris, and that's a good word.